Mic check, mic check. I think we're good. We'll get this rolling in a second. Okay, well, there's my face. Mic check, mic check. Uh-oh, there I hear it. I think we're good. Okay, I am not a good streamer, but I have been streaming on Twitch, not related to speaking conversation stuff, more so on gaming and music, but not so much that I'm trying to be a content creator. What I will say is making stuff, creating things is a really healthy process for me. And earlier this year and last year, I was doing a podcast again with a friend, which was really, really good and healthy for me. But we had to close up on that. And so without a project on the regular being part of my schedule, I'm just not talking to people very often. And it's crazy to me when I was coaching people on speaking and conversation. Part of what let me empathize and relate to people was just always that facet of, I know what it's like. I'm stuttering, I'm stumbling, I'm pausing, ums, uhs, and likes. If I can get over it with regular practice, anybody can do it. I'm not so unique in that regard, other than putting in dedicated time and practice to it. What I used to tell people is, if you want to become a better speaker, not just with English language learning, even in your own native language, is listen to yourself. And when you podcast and when you edit, you have to go back. Like, most people don't like the sound of their voice, right? But if you get used to it, you have to hear yourself constantly for hundreds of hours. You can't hate and loathe your voice. You know, you will become a little bit indifferent, a little bit neutral. And, well, let's rewind back. I don't know how much behind the scenes I want to get into, but for people who are tuning into the first time, again, I apologize for the setup not being the best right now. I'm basically just importing the setup that I use for Twitch with my gaming and music stuff. Maybe if this becomes a more regular thing, the first thing I should say is I don't know how often I'll be doing this. Maybe once a week, maybe once a month. I will try to keep these short, probably 15 to 20 minutes. But if you're tuning in for the first time, or if you're one of my long 700 subscribers on this dormant channel, thanks for sticking with it. If you have any questions or comments or requests, be sure to drop them in. I am trying to monitor and pay attention to the chat, but again, there's a little bit, or a lot of it, quite a lot more delay than the Twitch stream does it. But who am I? Let's see. When it comes to English language learning, I was an English tutor in college for 3 years. After graduating, I did the JET program, where I was an assistant language teacher at Japanese high schools for 3 years. When I came back, I taught 2 years at the advanced English instructor level at an international school. And then from 2015 to, we want to say 2022, 2023 officially, I did kind of my own consulting coaching gig. And some of the mantras, some of the values and ideas I had with, that's my cat Pepper, if you hear him, he says Happy Halloween, was that grammar sucks, and we're going to touch on that again today. You should be able to speak about anything. I don't want people to feel stuck and just grades and the academic bubble, getting outside of that, just being able to really speak and connect with people, because you can have a great connection. You have a good time. You can have a lot of fun with quote unquote intermediate English. And then you can have fluency, you can have perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar and vocabulary, and be the most boring, dull, uninteresting person to talk to. So work on a compromise. And the problem with the academic bubble with English language learning is it will reinforce the wrong things. So standardized testing, again, I have a talking point on that we'll get into in this video. But that was such a driving force for me until it wasn't, kind of faded away. And I think, if anything, I would probably just distill it to have better conversations for yourself. You know, a lot of people, when they want to improve their communication skills, it really is from a business oriented mindset. You want to get that promotion. You want to do well at the interview. You want to impress your boss. You want to impress clients. You want to negotiate the deal. And all those things matter, of course, because what's the driving factor behind that? Money. And money talks. And money is very, very important. And I will always say that that factor will push people, will push most people a lot more than I want to learn English so I can make friends with people all over the world. That's not a bad reason. It can be very effective for a unique type of person, but for most people, probably not as lucrative as money. Okay. With these live stream talks, I think part of the pause with content creation for the Calm Dao channel is not just that my heart wasn't in it so much and I've moved on to other things, but the topics and the relevance just aren't present on my mind like they used to be. So today, though, I do have two topics in mind that I wanted to cover. Not super in line with Halloween, but we're going to talk about candy, and that is topical. We're going to talk about candy, and we're going to talk about this question that I saw on the English learning subreddit. So let us jump into candy. There we go. So if you want to, you can let me know what your favorite candy is. Maybe we'll share the same opinion. Maybe we won't. But the real kicker is it doesn't matter what your favorite candy is. And we'll talk about why. So if you are starting out, what are you going to learn? You're going to learn basic phrases to describe your likes and your dislikes. I like candy. I don't like candy. I dislike candy. I love candy. Okay? Now, from the fundamental building blocks, nothing is wrong with that. Grammatically, that's fine. You know, you can work on your pronunciation if L's give you difficulty. If the blending of the vowel sounds are just so different from your native language, it could take you time to grasp this. Okay? And I don't want to discredit anyone who has difficulty in speaking English. So if it takes you time to get on this level to say something like, I like candy, I don't like candy. Again, you don't want to segment it. If we want to do pronunciation practice real quick, it's not I like candy. You need to string it all together. I like candy. I don't like candy. I don't like candy. Right? If you want to make it a little bit more advanced, okay, I prefer something else instead. So if you don't like candy, I prefer chocolate instead. And then, well, wait, chocolate and candy are different? I don't know. Maybe you can have that conversation. Or I prefer savory snacks instead. I'd rather have potato chips. I'd rather have popcorn. I'd rather have a beer. I'd rather eat pretzels, okay? So you like something, you don't like something, but how can you extend that? What would you like even more than what you like? So you like something, but you like something even more. That's how you can progress the conversation. But what I really want to instill in people, because a lot of people will get hung up on this portion, and this lends itself to that false progression of English where you can get really good at this. You can list off 10 things that you like or 10 things that you dislike. Maybe you love them. Like, oh, whoa, even more. You're just making a big list. But you should be, when you're speaking, okay, when you're talking, you should be talking about things that you enjoy instead of just giving facts about yourself, because you're not really having a conversation when you're just listing things, right? I like candy. I like beer. I prefer pretzels. That's not a conversation. Or if you think it is, it's a super boring conversation. You know, like if we're really thinking on the conversational level, someone likes candy or they don't like candy, does this have an effect on what we eat? Okay, what if you like the same exact candy that I do? then that means every time I'm eating it, I have to share with you. So maybe I want to eat it in secret just so you don't know because I don't want to share it with you. Or every time I share it, you eat way too much and I barely have any candy for myself, right? That's the reality of the outcome. That's what you should be thinking about, not just listing all the candies that you enjoy. Don't worry about that bottom part. I didn't edit that in time. But yeah, just focus on that top portion there. What effect does this have on what we eat? If you know somebody eats way too much candy, is that going to spoil their dinner? Okay, then that's something that we can go off of, right? But the moment where you can say something like this feels very icebreaker-y or classroom. So like a classroom exercise, you get introduced to verb, you get introduced to vocabulary, then you have to reinforce it. And you're doing that, you're utilizing English for that task. But it's not real speaking. It's not real communication. Icebreakers, that's not real communication either. In fact, like, if we think about it, maybe there's a reason why I want to figure out what candy they enjoy so I can get it for them. But beyond that, like, you're fact-finding versus having the conversation. That's the main thing that I want to instill. So make sure you don't get caught up in just this. Like, there's a time and place for this, but it's so low level. Again, I don't want to discredit anybody who's struggling with this. Practice. If you need help with this, yeah, you can get it. But don't stay in this zone of conversation because it's not real conversation. All right. Let's go to this next thing. This was from the subreddit, and let me see if I can put it into the chat. Okay. So let's go on that grammar soapbox again. That I hate grammar because all the standardized testing, there's always going to be, well, actually, a lot of them could be right, but there's going to be one that's the most correct, the most right. So I don't want to approach this from the textbook example because it's very possible that I'm wrong in deciphering what is the most correct thing. What we want to address is from a speaking standpoint. Yes, all of them can work. We'd better hurry up. Our coach leaves in less than an hour. We'd better hurry up. Our coach is going to leave in less than an hour. We'd better hurry up. Our coach is leaving in less than an hour. No one's going to bat an eye. No one's going to be like, oh, non-native speaker, because they used a different word choice. In fact, the only reason why it might sound off or a little bit odd is if you slow down too much. So this happens a lot of times with non-native speakers. They will get to the point where they don't have confidence. And because they carry that lack of confidence through with their speaking, that's the reason why it's obviously off. So if I say, we'd better hurry up, our coach leaves in less than an hour. Yeah, that's weird. Like, our coach is going to leave? Yeah, it sounds odd because suddenly I slow down all my momentum. If I ran through, we'd better hurry up, and then suddenly I stop and get choppy with that last part, that's what messes it up the most. But if we had to go through this, if I'm making an attempt to be the most correct and most accurate, I would say that we'd better hurry up, our coach leaves in less than an hour is the most wrong one. And the most right one is we'd better hurry up, our coach is leaving in less than an hour. If you go into that link, a lot of people give their insight. What I would recommend is if you find an explanation that makes sense to you, take it. Like, if I want to draw a parallel to fitness and exercise and health advice, for example, is you could be studious. You could be a good student. You want to get a wide variety of opinions. But what will happen is if you listen to everybody and everything, you're going to stress out. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to get frustrated, and you're probably going to want to give up because you can only process so much information at a time. So I would not read all the answers in that thread. I would click if you want to go through the top ones. If you want to avoid the top answers and go to the bottom, yeah, pick a couple. If you want to stick with my answer, oh, hey, that's nice of you, but you're under no obligation to do so. So if you want to, hey, even without explaining this further, something about this, the way I'm reading it, hey, we'd better hurry up. Our coach leaves in less than an hour. Oh, yeah, I hear it. I feel like this is wrong. We'd better hurry up. Our coach is leaving in less than an hour. I didn't even explain anything yet. Something is clicking for you? Stop the video. Don't watch anymore. That's good enough for you. That's how you should proceed with this, especially if you're not taking the TOEFL or the TOEIC. You're just trying to learn to navigate conversationally. Build up your intuition in that way, okay? Because I promise you, especially with this grammar point, going back again, there's going to be some times where there is absolutely, definitively, very clear broken English phrases that you cannot be using certain verb conjugations and word orders and structures that you have to use. But in this case, this one right here, leaves, is going to leave, is leaving, all of these sound fine, okay? So don't stress yourself out over this one. But for this video, for this stream, for what we're going to do, one thing that I did not see mentioned in that thread that made sense to me, that part of the reason why I want to put this video, because no one else is talking about this, is the concept of modal verbs. So going back to this, had better. So we'd better, that's shortened of had better, we'd better, hurry up. And a modal verb, other ones that the most familiar one probably is going to be should, and then there's ought to or oughta. So when you have a modal verb, this indicates something is happening, okay? So we should hurry up. We ought to hurry up because what is happening? Our coach is leaving, right? Something is happening. So let's put this into practice with other examples. You should tell him. Why? Because he's making a big mistake. What is happening? He's making a big mistake. You ought to see her. What is happening? She's moving soon. Because she's moving soon, you ought to see her. Because he's making a big mistake, you should tell him, right? Like clicking in that way, that makes a lot of sense, right? So if we can argue, okay, like this is going to happen, versus something that is happening. That's the main nuance and distinction between B and C right here. Again, on a casual conversational level, they both make sense. Nobody's thinking this in depth at it. But because we're talking about grammar, because this is what grammar forces you to do, to overanalyze the wrong things, that's what we're doing for this stream. So, again, the modal verb, that's what's happening in this situation. Something is happening. Like, I don't know if that's more confusing with what I said right there. The modal verb, because something is happening, something is happening. So again, you should tell him because he's making a big mistake. Because he's making a big mistake, you should tell him. That's what's happening. She's moving soon. Because she's moving soon, you ought to see her. These should, you ought to, those are those modal verbs pushing forward this. Now, as I was typing up this example, we do have an exception, and that's the thing that sucks about English. There's so many exceptions every time, like you feel like you have a grip and handle on understanding of something. But I think you should be able to follow this along. You, and then that's the second person, right? Him, third person. You, second person. Her, third person. He's making a big mistake. That's that third person again. She's moving soon. That's that third person. So those perspectives, for reference, I, we, us, those are first person. If we say, you should tell him, you're reminding him, we have the be and the ing, but this doesn't work because we're taking that second. So you should tell him, you're reminding him, something sounds weird here. This doesn't work. You ought to see her. You're meeting her one last time. those concepts are okay where maybe in the conversation, like they would reoccur, but these sentences would not be back to back. Here, they would be back to back. You should tell him he's making a big mistake. So we're linking the third person with the third person. You ought to see her with she, she's moving soon, third person, third person. But here, you, him, you, no. You, her, you, no. Something doesn't sound good right there. So the takeaway from this, because we hit the 21 mark here, Blackjack. If this page right here, this is all you need for it to click, great. If this page confuses you, don't worry about this. If this page is the main takeaway, oh, I just never want to do second, third, second, fine. If this is the page you want to use, great. You know, the biggest mistake is thinking that you have to have this all strung together. Nobody is learning English that way. And if that's how you've learned English and speaking your whole life, and you think that's what you need to progress and get better, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're giving yourself the wrong impression of what it really means to improve. The reality is getting as many little pockets of things that you can pick up from time to time and forgetting them, because being an adult, when you have other responsibilities, jobs, kids, families, lovers, ex-lovers, you're going to forget things. And the next time you have to remember something, it will become even easier, okay? So accept that you're going to forget it. Treat this as just as an introduction. Part of the reason why I like shorter form content is because it's easier to rewatch, you know? Like, it sucks when you forget. It sucks when you've covered it multiple times, but that's also part of the process. And the more that you can get acquainted with, hey, I'm exposed to it, I'm going to review, I'm going to forget. Maybe you review it regularly. Maybe you're not going to rewatch it again till half a year later. That's fine. Okay. And then the last point, just like we were talking about candy before, what is the real conversation? So if we step away from the grammatical aspect of this, we treat this like a conversation. Why are we late? Where are we going? Who are these people you're traveling with? You know, like, because you're late, you never want to travel with them again. Was there a good reason why you're late? Like, what is this context and predicament? Why we got to hurry up? Why weren't we there early? Or maybe the person we're talking to over worries. You know, less than an hour, we're only 5 minutes away from the train, maybe. So why do we got to rush? Why do we got to hurry? Maybe there's other circumstances going on. That's the real conversation, right? Not this super zeroed in, honed in grammatical aspect. So always make that distinction. If you're taking the TOEFL, if you're taking the TOEIC, if you're doing any other kind of English standardized testing prep, this sucks. I feel for you. I hate this. Most instructors hate this also, and you'll see that in that Reddit thread. But from a conversational standpoint, focus on the bigger picture. What are we talking about here? Lead the conversation in this way, and don't be too down on yourself whether or not you get the grammatical aspect or not. Okay, that is the end of the first stream. What I think I'll do is I will cut this up. I'll leave the full stream out there for whoever might enjoy that. But I'll cut up a version of that candy conversation. I'll cut up a version of that grammar thing that I just covered. And do let me know if it's just better to do the streamlined content releases, or if the live stream should be a more regular thing or not. And don't eat too much candy. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in on the VOD or when you check out these edited releases later. And until next time,